Hey everyone, it's Felicia with a weekly sexuality situation. This week we are going to talk about ethics and morality, justice and public policy, and sadly, sexual assault and college campuses. College is a wonderful time in a young adult's life. Awesome educational opportunities, but sports games, semesters abroad, being away from your parents, fraternities, sororities, volunteer organizations, and other on-campus organizations characterize many of the opportunities offered to students by brick-and-mortar universities. Sorry to online students, all you get is forums. But there are so many experiences offered by higher education institutions whose purpose are nothing more than to broaden the scope of knowledge and opportunity to the student, to do good for the student. But unfortunately, there is also opportunity to encounter negative experiences on campus. And I am not talking about that mean professor that gave you that bad grade. I am talking about the risk of sexual assault. From our point of view here at the Sexuality Situation, sexual assault is a major public health concern and has matured to a public health crisis on college campuses nationwide. It has become such a crisis, in fact, that researchers from Drexel University in Philadelphia began to research the relationship between victim statistics, assault reporting, current sexual assault criminalization legislation, and the quandary of university administrative intervention versus criminal justice disciplinary intervention. Their final report was released in August of 2015, and it contains some shocking information to us here at the Sexuality Situation. The researchers found that about 20% of undergraduate women experience some sort of sexual assault on campus. Now, keep in mind that in most public health statistical reports that include disease prevention and data, we always assume that the number is higher than actually reported because a lot of incidents go unreported. So if you think about that 20%, you may be wondering how much higher is it actually, and we're not sure. But 1 out of every 5 females preparing to attend college this fall is wondering, is she going to be the one of the 5? Is it going to be her sister? Is it going to be her cousin? It's a very intimidating statistic, and that's why we're sort of here talking about it with you today, to sort of spread the word and get everyone fired up to sort of fight for this issue. The research also found that 75% of college campuses nationwide have sexual assault response systems, and of that, only half actually offer access to victims to report incidents of sexual assault, and to further that blow, only half of those who do have systems limit their availability to regular business hours. So essentially only 17% of colleges in the United States have an institutional, intentional, and accessible sexual assault response. Students, parents, and communities are entitled to an assumption that universities and schools are providing a safe living and learning environment to its students. But the evidence offered by the Drexel University researchers is not very comforting. Here at the Sexuality Situation, we believe and are dedicated to human rights and social justice. We believe it is the moral and ethical obligation of schools to maintain a role of non-maleficence and beneficence to the students it serves. Defined by Greenberg, Brewis, and Oswalt in 2013, non-maleficence is the principle to do no harm, to prevent harm, and to remove harm when encountered, while beneficence is the principle then of preventing harm and then doing good. This is why so many elementary schools, middle schools, high schools, school districts all around the nation have strict policies about drug use on campus, weapons on campus, bullying and harassment on campus, for prevention of harm and to do good. Most colleges now even have strict policies about alcohol-related infractions, even for students who are of legal drinking age. So why not sexual assault? Why, in order to get justice, these victims have to turn themselves into advocates and fight very hard just to ensure the protection of their basic human rights? I mean, even if every victim had the time, energy, resources, and mental capacity to fight the system, they are often faced with psychosocial cultural consequences that make the situation even worse. So in order to maintain beneficence to the students it serves, universities need to step up. and fix this problem. So the Drexel researchers also talk about public policy in their report, namely the Clery Act of 1990 and the Violence Against Women Act of 2013. Now, in title, these pieces of legislation sound amazing. However, they're not really much more than making sure that universities actually gather this data and report this data and maintain transparency about this data. The only thing about prevention is the amendment to the Clery Act of 1992, which is the Campus Sexual Assault Victims Bill of Rights, which requires that academic institutions develop prevention policies and provide certain assurances to victims of sexual assault. We're not quite sure how that's panning out for us. That is the legislation that guides universities' action, or inaction, as we see it here at the Sexuality Situation. Our opinion is that action would be the integration of strict disciplinary policies academically and also criminally, intentional prevention education for students, and tangible resources for victims outreach, for example, a 24-hour hotline that takes sexual assault calls. If you think about maintaining a sense of legitimacy, this has to be sponsored on the part of the university. And if you think about borrower education, which has recently been an initiative offered by the Office of Financial Aid, borrower education is this little tutorial that you have to take and sign off before you can accept student loans. And it talks all about how to borrow, how to be a responsible borrower, what happens if you get into trouble, and what your consequences are if you are not a good borrower. Reason goes to show that this could be a very easy, inexpensive, effective tool that universities could implement to make some positive change on this issue. I mean, if you think about it, at orientation or with their advisor, or even when they are applying to the college in the first place, they could watch a 30-minute video about sexual assault on campus, about the campus's rules, about the state's laws regarding the issue and all the resources around it. What we think here at the Sexuality Situation, and what we think the researchers are essentially trying to say, is that the efforts that are currently happening are not enough. We're not doing good enough. We are seeing an increase every year in the amount of sexual assaults reported on campus, and we need to do better. And though it is about progress and not perfection, we here at the Sexuality Situation do believe we're going backwards on this issue. So that's why we present it to you today. We want you to know that this is happening in your country and that there is some things that you can do about it. So we will continue to follow this story and to advocate for the victims and potential victims of sexual assault. So before we go, I'd like to share my references with you today. First reference was the Mateo, Galloway, Arnold, and Patel. These are your Drexel University researchers on sexual assault on campus. And we also drew from Greenberg, Brewis, and Oswalt, 2013, Exploring the Dimensions of Human Sexuality, 5th edition. For this, we drew our definitions on maleficence and beneficence. So, thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.